Welcome to Here Where You Belong, your go-to podcast for exploring belonging with your host and belonging expert, Dia Irby. We are thrilled to have you join us. Together, we'll dive into the depths of what it means for each of us to find our own place in the world, whether it's within our communities, our relationships, or within ourselves. Today's episode is meant to inspire, uplift, and remind you that no matter where you are or where you're headed, you have a place where you truly belong. So grab a cozy spot and settle in. Welcome to Here Where You Belong.
Hello, awesome belongers. Welcome home to Here Where You Belong podcast. I have someone amazing for you to meet today who's the author of Everybody Wins, 10 Principles for Win-Win Communication. That's yummy. And the podcast host also of Love, Serve, Care. I'm Dia Irby, your host, and I want you to get ready to be inspired and blessed. Let's welcome Alex Dumas. Hey, Alex.
Thank you, Dia. Appreciate you. Thank you for the invitation to be here.
I'm so glad you could join us. Well, here is a bit more about our guest. Alex Dumas is the Win-Win Communicator. He partners with world-class organizations that want to obtain and retain leaders so that they can ensure sustainable growth. He's renowned for his expertise in leadership, communication, and resilience. Alex Dumas has empowered hundreds of corporate executives and business owners to become win-win communicators also since 2018. That's over half a decade. Good job.
Yeah,
As a
wild.
keynote speaker, international best-selling author, and sought after expert voice for conferences, podcasts, or publications, Alex delivers transformational content that resonates with leaders at all levels. His audiences walk away with actionable strategies to communicate effectively, lead purposefully, and achieve personal and organizational success. He authored the series A Journey of Riches. In the latest installment, The Power of Self-Discovery, you'll encounter 11 transformative stories of individuals who discovered the resilience to overcome life's most challenging lessons and embark on new beginnings. Wow. Alex, it looks like you have a few things you can share. What do you want to add to that introduction?
Gosh, well, one, I'm going to take you on the road with me wherever I go because that was an outstanding introduction. And I think the thing that's important for people to recognize all these titles, all these things, they're impressive, they're amazing, and they're things that I've lived and what I continue to live. And I also want to share them that it wasn't always like this, that this journey, this path that I've been on has been riddled with a lot of insecurities, a lot of doubts, a lot of feelings of not belonging. And we're going to definitely dive into that. But I want just people to understand that this wasn't a magic, like poof, poof, I just made this happen. Like this is a gradual, a continuous process. And it's also worth it too.
Well, you didn't start out so great. You weren't so amazing when you started. Every expert is a beginner at the beginning. And that's what you're saying, right? And you've spent over half a decade getting to where you are now. And I'm sure even before that, you've got a story about maybe how you found belonging. There was a time when you didn't feel like you belonged. Since this is Here Where You Belong, let's hear about your belonging story.
Yeah, for sure. So currently right now I reside in North Carolina, just outside of Raleigh, but I grew up in Long Island. I grew up in the suburbs, so I'm a middle class kid. You know, I'm gonna just paint the picture for you, right? Just the barbecue, sports, riding bikes with friends, playing Super Nintendo, all these kind of different things. I'm the youngest of four kids, so I like to tell people that my parents saved the best for last. It's just it's true. But I had a very interesting moment when I was probably around 5 or 6 years old, right? Just going to my house, playing, doing the things that little boys do, just playing with toys, experimenting and being curious. And I came across this family portrait, this photo that I've probably seen hundreds of times up to this point, but I never really stopped or paid attention to it. But for some reason, on this one day, I stopped and I stared at it. I looked at it and I really noticed something. I saw my father, saw my mother, rest her soul, my older sister, and my two older brothers. Now, for you listening, you heard me say I'm a youngest of four, right? So I see three kids, my parents, and this thought comes to me, well, where am I? I'm not here, right? I look on the back of the photo, I'm looking on the floor. I don't know what pregnancy means, but I'm trying to look around my brother's big head and see if maybe I'm in my mama's stomach. I'm nowhere to be found. And in that moment, right, it was just this, I don't, it's hard for me to put into words, just this cosmic shift within me where I felt like I didn't belong. I'm not here. Do I even exist? Right. And that was very profound for me. I started to think about, well, does my life matter? Right? All these questions started to flood my head at this young age. And now for you listening, you watching, you might think to yourself, well, Alex, wouldn't it just been simple to say to your parents, hey, I'm on this photo. Can we take a new family photo? That would have probably wiped out 30 plus years of anxiety and depression and frustration. But I made up my mind in that one moment that I'm not here. I don't belong. My voice isn't important. My story doesn't matter. Like there's nothing about me that's valuable. And through the years, through different experiences, I would collect evidence to back that up. Where my family, my parents, they they were born in Haiti, so Haitian Creole, French is our native language. Guess who the only person in the family who didn't speak it, who never learned it? This guy, right? So I'll be around family members, grandparent, my grandmothers, cousins, and just feel completely out of place because yes, a lot of them spoke English, but when they were speaking in Creole and French, I didn't know what to do. And they're like, and they would just look at me kind of like this, think of like a poor puppy, like a sick dog in the streets, like, oh, poor thing, like poor boy, like, oh my goodness, like what are we gonna do with him? So I'd find evidence there in schools. I grew up in a very diverse neighborhood, Black, Latino families, white families, right? A real like jambalaya, right? Just a lot of people, a lot of different voices and spaces. But with schools, my parents wanted us to have a quote unquote good education. So I'll go to predominantly white schools, Catholic schools. So I'll be one of a few faces of color in the room. At a young age, that's uncomfortable because there's different conversations that are being had that I don't relate to or they can't relate to me. So here's another piece of exhibit, right? In my evidence bag. Here's another place I don't belong. So I would just find these different things over and over. It caused me to isolate myself. It caused me to disconnect from people. I really just stayed within myself. I really didn't speak up much. Even though I was funny, even though I was popular, I was kind of a class clown, right? This duality, these two pieces of my life where I wanted to get attention and be wild and crazy, but I also wanted to be left alone because that's how I felt. I felt very alone. And this is not to say that I didn't have a great childhood. My parents were amazing. My family, my brothers, my sister, they loved me. They took care of me. Obviously, I'm here. They didn't neglect me. They didn't leave me in the cold. But inside, my identity, my way of being was I don't belong here. I don't fit in anywhere. I'm just trying to find my place, and that led to a lot of choices that didn't serve me, that weren't effective, but they're all part of what brought me here. So hopefully that answers that question in a nutshell there.
Well, it is unfortunately, a very common uh, situation or a feeling like once you decide something, then you start like you said, finding the evidence that supports the lie that you're believing, that
Yeah.
you didn't belong, but you did belong, but you believed you didn't. So everything around you was the evidence. When you tie yourself or your identity to a lie, oh, you can be the best attorney bringing up the evidence to win the case.
Yeah.
So that's the start. How did you turn it around? Because obviously you seem like you belong now.
Yeah.
What happened?
Gosh, a lot happened in life. So to bring people up to speed, I wrote about this in the book in my specific chapter, Everybody Wins, including me. There was this moment in December 2005 where on paper, I'm doing really well for myself. I have a job. I got a car. I'm a senior in college. I'm about to graduate in spring of '06. So I'm on paper doing well, but behind the scenes, right? If you peel back the curtain, I'm addicted to drugs. I'm addicted to pornography. I'm isolating myself. I'm not connecting with people. I'm just in my in my own bubble to myself. And at that time, I don't have confidence to talk to girls, so I'm going online trying to meet people. And and this is me dating myself now, this wonderful platform called MySpace existed or just came about that year or maybe the year before. And as I'm going through a night of just looking at people and trying to, find girls, I've come across this one young lady's profile, and I'm like, all right, let me, she seemed interesting. There's nothing, I'm saying, and I would say there's nothing spectacular, nothing like jumped out the page, like, oh my goodness, like, whoa. It was just like, oh, something interesting about her. And I bypass all the rules, but I used to be like, well, like her photo. I don't even know if you could do that back then, but you should add her as a friend, this and that. But I just went straight into the DM. I just slid right through. I was like, hey, what up? Nice pics. Right. And I was in a hurry, so I didn't have a chance to say what's up. I was like, what up? I wanted to condense it, right? 3 words. 3 words. But these 3 words changed my life because for some reason she responded back. We started talking, we exchanged phone numbers, we add each other on each other's buddy list, right? So this is going back, right? This is '05. And she lived the town or so over from me. So we're only a few miles away. We started hanging out. And then by January '06, we became a couple and we've been together ever since. And that was the real catalyst for me turning things around because she really laid out an ultimatum like pretty early on in our relationship because she was getting out of her own rough situation. She was coming out of domestic abuse, sexual abuse, miscarriage, homelessness. I mean, she had it rough. So you put these two broken people and we find a way together. And she laid out to me like, hey, listen, you're spending a lot of your time doing these things, hanging out with your friends. I need to be the priority. So what's it going to be? I don't want to hear that. I'm 22 at the time. I don't want to hear all that stuff. But I make a choice. I make a decision that I think she might be worth it, and she might be worth me investing real time into, and being honest and upfront with her. And that was the catalyst for me to separate myself from my buddies, the neighborhood, from the connections that I had in what I call the drug world, and then and like the baby thug life I was trying to live, and turn things around. And through through her, through coaching, eventually that came about years later, where I discovered coaching and professional speaking. But that that journey of personal growth and really just taking accountability, taking ownership of my life was the thing that started to turn around. But she was, my wife Sarah, she was the spark. She was the person who really saved my life because I was headed nowhere.
That is awesome. Way to go, Sarah.
Yeah.
So it sounds like what the lie was beginning to be broken and exposed. That if someone wanted to be with you, you must have value. And then you were accepting yourself. Or also, was it some of now you had a reason, you had a purpose, a goal to change your life. You had, you weren't just floating along anymore. If you wanted, you made a choice to turn your life around, right? And that's what it takes. First, you have to identify that you're listening or believing to a lie, and then what are you going to do about it?
Yeah. But you may have heard this before, but I had to borrow her belief in me before I could believe it. She saw something in me that other people didn't see, or maybe they did see, but at the time, as a kid, as a boy, a teen, a young adult, my filter was I'm not here, I don't exist. So even if you were to say, Alex, you're amazing, you're awesome, congratulations, like whatever it might be,
Mhm.
it would fly. I couldn't even receive it. It's like Teflon, it doesn't stick to me. But
Mhm.
she found a way to reach me, and I was ready to listen too. So I think those are two parts of it. I was ready, I was looking for something, and as you seek, you find.
Alex, that's amazing that Sarah came into your life and you were able to take on the belief she had in you to believe in yourself and turn your life around. That's love. What's love got to do with it? A whole lot. That song comes to mind. What's love got? I'm not going to sing. Sorry. Um, so, yeah, what can we learn from your experience that will help us help other people feel like they belong? I mean, we
Yeah, it's
can't,
great.
get on MySpace again, but I'm sure there's
No.
some steps, like even to recognize when someone needs to be affirmed or acknowledged or seen or heard.
Yeah. One of the things that I work with companies on is this idea about acknowledgement, because that's one of the most powerful things you can do for somebody. And it goes beyond the surface level of, wow, Dia, you're such a nice person. Good job. I want to attach something that you do to who I think you are, that I know that I believe that you know about yourself would be true. So, case in point, I'll use my kids as an example. My son, he's a he's 9 years old at the time right now. He's a little tank. He's a very thoughtful kid and very creative. He loves to draw, loves to sing, do all these different things. And I like to attach these different qualities of him to what he's doing so that it anchors in, right? So it could be easy for me to be like, wow, good job kicking the soccer ball, or good job drawing this picture. But I want to be present with them and take that time of, wow, you're such an amazing artist. I love the detail you put into it. You're so thoughtful, you're so creative, and that's why you make such great art, right? So that his memory, his right, you think of Inside Out, right? The core memory of him, I want him to come from a place of, wow, I could do anything because I'm so creative. Wow, I'm so thoughtful. I am that kind of person. That I am is is rooted, right? We can go into the biblical tense of it and all that, but I want to attach who they really are to what they do. And when we do that with teams, when I work on that with leaders, they see it, right? Because it goes beyond the place of like, hey, great job doing this report. Now, if I attach this thing to you, well, I'm the person who always gets the job done. I'm the person that people can rely on. I'm the person that everybody knows when I present or when I speak, when I share, whenever I do, that they're going to get the best out of me. And that raises the game, that raises the tide. And that's the principle I talk about with building a bigger bubble of sorts of building people up, helping them expand, helping them grow, helping them to see possibilities. Because before Sarah, right, before coaching, before any of this in my life, the challenge for me was I was asking myself really disempowering questions, questions that didn't give me a way up. I would ask things to myself like, why is life like this? Why is this happening to me? Why can't they treat me the way that I want to be treated, right? And I have this unrealistic expectation of everybody to bend to my will, so to speak. And when I started to shift is, well, what do I want to create from these different obstacles? What's an opportunity here? What is something what's available to me right now that can help me, or who's available to me, instead of me being in my head trying to think about how can I do this? How am I gonna get myself out of this jam? How am I gonna figure this out? Right. I'm great, but I'm not that great. I can't do everything. I can do a lot of things, but I can't do everything. And I was trying to do everything. I recognize now I can acknowledge myself for my limitations and also be at peace with it, not be like, oh, Alex, you're such an idiot. How could you do that? Like you always do this. You're right. Just who are like, come on, guy. Now I can step back and laugh at it like, oh, okay, you're being silly here, man. What are we doing here? Where are we coming from? What's happening? What am I not seeing? So it's just a practice of slowing down. And I think for your audience, if you give yourself that grace to just slow down just a little bit, just a little frequency, just dial it down a little bit, just start to see, where am I coming from? Who am I being as I'm doing these things? Who am I being as if I'm a, if I'm a parent, if I'm a spouse, if I'm a employee, if I'm a leader, if I'm a boss, where am I coming from? I think that could be very helpful for people to consider.
Hey there! Isn't my guest amazing? So glad you joined us today. In this world that often feels disconnected, building community and fostering belonging are essential. That's why I created this podcast, to bring inspiring people to you, to encourage you to create that sense of belonging and community, no matter where you are. If you're being blessed by my guest, and we have some more, like, subscribe, and share this podcast. You know who needs to hear this. Stay connected, stay true to yourself, and always remember, you belong. Now, back to our amazing guest. Welcome back. We are here with the amazing Alex Dumas with all of his wisdom and knowledge and experience. I'm so glad you're here, Alex. I like to ask my people, what is their favorite quote? And what's interesting is your favorite quote is your own quote. So tell us about that quote and how you came up with it and what it means to you.
Yeah, for sure. I love to be a self-quoter. The quote I shared a few minutes ago was about, it's called Build a Bigger Bubble. And this was inspired from a speaking coach who, this is really was meant for supporting my keynotes and having something that sticks with people, right? They call it the phrase that pays. And what it means for me is this opportunity to grow and expand, right? If I think about the journey that we've talked about so far, with me being a young boy, not seeing myself in a picture, like literally not seeing myself in a picture, and creating all these different scenarios of not seeing myself or not feeling like I belong. And that that caused me to shrink, to hide, to not express myself, to not be fully who I am, and really cheating people and cheating myself of relationships, of friendships, and anything else. And I wrote about this in the book. There's this one particular moment where my thoughts, my intentions had to expand in order to make a miraculous event happen, right? Me and three other coaches put together a one-day event, almost had 300 people in a room. We did this all within 73 days, which is not easy to do. I come from an event background. Anybody who's ever put on conferences or any type of in-person gatherings knows that it takes months for planning, especially if it's significant numbers, 300, 400, 500 people. So for a group of relative novices to do this in about 2 months is pretty miraculous. And beyond that, thinking about the impact we made as far as a decision to use the proceeds from that one event, we were raising that up at first to pay for coaching. And then our coaches, our mentors saw that, and they invited us and rolled us into a new possibility of giving that money away and donating it to charity. So the bigger bubble, looking at what's beyond me, right? What's the generational impact? What's the global impact that we can make beyond ourselves, right? Raising the money in this case to pay off this coaching. That's a noble effort, right? There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing selfish. But what I saw was, man, what if we could serve? What if we could actually amplify our influence to other people, not because we need the praise, not because we need the recognition, but like we can actually help people make a difference. So when I talk about building a bigger bubble, it's not a place to exclude people. It actually is a way for you to enroll people, because as a leader, you can only go so far, right? It's about speaking out that mission and living out that mission, and speaking to people all the time is a constant thing. It can be a little exhausting depending on who you are, but one Alex can do a lot. But if I had 10 Alexes, if I had an army of Alexes who were intentional, devoted, committed, relentless, oh my goodness, you can see what happens. And also, on the other side of that, we've seen what happens when people misuse their power, when they enroll people to destroy, when you enroll people for hatred, when you enroll people for
Self-gain.
persecution, right? So
Mm.
when we talk about building a bigger bubble, I want to build a bigger bubble of influence, impact, and so that it can serve people, not hurt.
That is inspiring and encouraging. It reminds me of a saying that my husband, I'll quote my husband, as a pastor would always mention, especially when we were talking about missions. May the pebble of your life thrown into the ocean of the world make ripples on every shore. And that building a bigger bubble is making ripple, 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 and having an impact outward. Absolutely. And don't you feel it comes back to you? It's like
Oh
you're
yeah.
seeding it out there, but you're going to get so much more back from that. Now, where did your podcast that you have is the love, what is it? Sorry.
Yeah. Love, serve, care.
Love, serve, care. In your
Yeah.
timeline, where did that come into the picture of that event? Was that a spinoff, or did that already happen that brought about the event?
Yeah, my podcast's been in existence since November 2020. And well, quick backstory was that is my wife and I had ran a podcast together. We started that in 2018. It was called the Business and Marriage Podcast. We were talking to entrepreneurial couples and just sharing our insights about being a married couple, being in business together and growing. And that eventually fizzled out. We just both, it just fizzled out organically. But I had the itch to share and to express myself. And I thought, what would be something really fun to do? Like, how could I do this in a way that I would be excited about it, where I wouldn't get tired, I wouldn't get bored, and I found a way to incorporate some of these creative things that I love to do. I love to create music and produce things. So I made a beat, and I thought, oh, why don't I just make a podcast that is beat? It's 3 minutes and 20 something seconds long. And I started November 13th was the first episode. And to this day, right, as we're recording this, I'm gonna release my 1442nd episode every day. It's been a commitment of sharing these 3 minute insights, these three little digital bites for people to help them with their mindset and their businesses and resilience. And it's really honestly an audio diary because there's only so much business I can talk for, and especially collapse it in 3 minutes. But it's been helpful for me because I find inspiration everywhere, and conversations and different moments in my life. And I think to myself, like, oh, what do I get from this? So it helps me be more present with things like things that people would see as mundane, as not not monumental. I'll find something, right? And that's my lens. I'm looking for it. So even as a young boy, I was a powerful creator. I looked for evidence of not belonging. Now I look for things that inspire me, things that wake me up, things that may be helpful for other people. So that's where this podcast is. It's a part of me now. It's not something I really do. It's part of who I am. Final words for anyone watching, listening. I would encourage you, maybe even challenge you to start looking at what is something that is bigger than you, some way that you can contribute and serve other people. Because when we do it for ourselves, there's nothing wrong with it, right? If we're building a business, if we're working a job, if we're trying to achieve anything athletically, academically, whatever it is you're up to, it's easy to lose steam because there's only so much that I can motivate myself to do. And I'm a pretty motivated guy. I'm pretty inspired and fired up and pretty ambitious. But when I start thinking about the bigger picture, about, man, how will this affect other people, right? I think about my kids a lot and think about the legacy, think about multi-generations. Like, wow, what would it look like if my life right now could serve my great, down the line, 40 generations deep, right? Could I do that? Could I be somebody that's memorable? And not because I need to be remembered, not because I need the the recognition and a trophy of it, but just being able to show as an example that you can come from a place where you feel as low as I did, right? Where you considered taking your own life, where I considered, what is my purpose? Why am I here? Well, I'm just drifting along. If you can anchor into the big picture of all of us are here on this floating rock in space, and we can make this a better world, right? And it sounds like kumbaya. It sounds like, oh my goodness, Alex, stop with the woo-woo talk. But no, it's real. Energy is real, the frequency, abundance, all that kind of stuff. All these things are real. Quantum physics, it's as real as it gets. We're all connected, and there's no denying that. So why would I not want to make this experience better for everyone else too? Because like my title says, everybody wins, including me. I'm a part of everybody, right? It's not separate. Hey, you guys get to win. You guys get to have a great time. Everybody out here outside of this little dome of me gets to experience all the beauty in life. Like, no, I get to too. I get to have that fun too. I get to be a part of this, and it reciprocates. You can't stop it once you throw our little pebbles in rivers of consciousness. The ripples become waves, and the waves leave impact. So for you watching, I would encourage you. What's the big picture? What's the big thing that you can be a part of?
Ooh, that is ponderable. I
Yeah.
encourage people to make your bubble bigger, build a bigger bubble, and
Yeah.
think, what can I include in my world that's bigger than me and bigger than what I know now, that
Yeah.
will require other people to be a part of it and not just try to do something by yourself. Oh, let's see, have people that belong to your community.
Yeah, that's a big
There's
part
that,
of it.
there's
Hmm.
that belonging. Alex, thank you so much for all of your wisdom, knowledge, and inspiration. I appreciate you sharing your story. It was very valuable. This is Dia Irby, your host of Here Where You Belong, signing off. Belongers, stay connected, stay true to yourself, and always remember you belong. Bye now.
Thanks for tuning in to Hear Where You Belong. We hope today's episode has inspired you to embrace the beauty of belonging in your own life. Remember, no matter where you are or where you're headed, you have a place where you truly belong. Join us again next time for more insightful conversations and heartwarming stories. Until then, stay connected, stay true to yourself, and always remember that you belong.